close your eyes and pull like a dog.
And a new Irish record for Phil Healy, 22.99.
Christy Cooney hands over the Sam Maguire Cup to Ger McCarthy, Cork All-Ireland champions for the 7th time ever.
Hello and welcome to episode 10 of the Star Sport podcast. I'm Jack McCarran of the Southern Star, and I'm joined as always by Star Sport editor Ger McCarthy. On today's show we'll be reflecting on a famous win for Togher Celtic in the Beamish Cup final with our resident soccer guru Mr. Ger McCarthy.
We'll also be talking rugby with our editor Con Downing ahead of Munster's crunch clash with Saracens in the Champions Cup semi-final this weekend.
But on a weekend when Tiger Woods won the Masters, Liverpool beat Chelsea in the Premier League, and the LA Clippers stunned the Golden State Warriors with a record NBA playoff comeback, arguably the biggest sporting story of the weekend was a famous win for the Ilen Rovers over Carbery Rangers in the Cork Senior Football Championship. Kieran, I don't think I'm over-egging it to say that it was a big win for the Ilen Rovers, considering the last time they won a first round championship game goes back as far as 2013.
That's a good point, Jack. I don't think Ilen Rovers ever thought they'd be grouped together with Tiger Woods, Liverpool and the LA Clippers, but such is the weekend that they had, we'll let them have it this weekend. No, like we said, first time since 2013 Ilen won a first round game in the Senior Football Championship, which is fantastic for them, straight through to round 3, no relegation worries, like has been their case over the last couple of years. And the fact they beat Carbery Rangers, kind of local rivals here in Carbery, makes it all the sweeter. Carbery Rangers have been one of the dominant teams in the Senior Football Championship over the last 7-8 years. I think it's either they've got to 7 of the last 8 semi-finals or 8 of the last 9. It's one or the other. So that just shows you the level of consistency that Carbery Rangers have had. So for Ilen to go out and beat them, considering Ilen haven't been at their best in recent years, I think their manager Flower Driscoll was saying after on Sunday last year they were struggling to get 10 for training, but this year they're getting 30, so there's obviously a huge effort going on out there. So it's a fantastic win for them.
Another thing that Flower said after the game, Flower Driscoll, the Ilen Rovers manager, is that although it was a great win, they are expected to lose some players during the summer to the likes of the United States or wherever else young men go in this day and age. So that's obviously a worry, but take nothing away from a fantastic win.
Exactly, and it's worth pointing out too, Jack, that Ireland were missing the likes of Stephen Leonard, who's been one of their top forwards for the last couple of years. He was a powerhouse there in that Ireland under-21 team, missing the experienced Kevin O'Sullivan. David Coughlin was missing as well. So they were missing a couple of players, yet they still beat Carbery Rangers by 2-9 to 1-9. Those two early goals from, I think it was Sean O'Donovan and Tom Bush, they're obviously crucial in the win. By the time the championship comes around again, it'll be months down the line, and it's almost the way the Senior Football Championship in Cork is. It's almost like two separate competitions, but there's still a feel-good factor that Ireland can take from this and take into the next part of the championship when it comes along. As yet, they still don't know who they're playing in the next round. The draws for round 2 and round 3 won't be made, I think, until late May. But it's worth pointing out too, Jack, that Ireland have done very well to avoid getting involved in round 2 this year, which is the losers round, because Castlehaven lost previously, Valley Rovers lost, have Carbery Rangers in there, and you'll have one of either Ballincollig or O'Donovan Rossa in there either. So there's some very big hitters inside in round 2 of the Senior Football Championship this year. And when you consider that the revamped Senior Football Championship is coming on board next year, and there's let's say that the top 8, the 8 quarter-finalists from this year's championship would automatically go through to the Premier Senior next year, which is the top grade. And there's also kind of a grading system at play. So for Ireland to pick up this win, it gives them another couple of points, because I think, let me just check here, following the results of the last couple of years, Ireland were ranked at number 11 in the football rankings. So they'll pick up 10 points for this win. So for Ireland to try and get through to the top 12 and that top tier of the Senior Football Championship next year, it was quite an important result.
And as they say, goals win games, and I wasn't one bit surprised to see one of the goal scorers being Sean O'Donovan, the Ilen Rovers captain, because he bagged more than a few for the mighty Baltimore Crabs this season as well. So good to see Sean carrying on his junior soccer form into his senior football. Where do Carbery Rangers go from here though, Kieran?
Ross need to regroup now. To be fair to them, the likes of John Hayes started on the bench the last day. Robbie Kiley was on the bench. Seamus Hayes came on. Robert Hegarty came on. So they weren't full strength starting off, but still, you still would have expected Carbery Rangers, given what they've achieved over the last couple of years, to be too strong for Ireland. So all is not lost. They still have the second round to negotiate and get back on track. But it all depends now on that draw for round 2. If you get Carbery Rangers against Castlehaven, that is an almighty clash. One of the big guns will be gone. You could have Carbery Rangers against Valley Rovers, and Valleys have been very, very consistent over the last couple of years, nearly always in the quarter-final. So this year of all years, round 2, like I said earlier, there's some big hitters in there. Like there's some big sharks right inside there right now. There's some teams you want to avoid. So Micheál O'Sullivan, the Carbery Rangers manager, will obviously have wanted to avoid going down this route. Like, all's not lost. They still have a chance to get back on board. They're a very, very good team still. They got to the semi-finals again last year. You wouldn't write them off, but everything depends on the draw now when that happens, Jack.
And yeah, he said in his post-match interview that they were maybe slightly complacent on the day. Complacency, if that creeps in again to the second round, they'll be having a very short summer, you would assume. But for now, Kieran, we leave the GAA there, and as mentioned earlier, Togher Celtic secured their first Beamish Cup crown since 1997 with a 1-0 victory over defending champions Drinagh Rangers on Sunday. And Kieran, you spoke earlier to Ger McCarthy, who was at the game.
I'm joined now by Ger McCarthy, who was at the Beamish Cup final on Sunday, a game that Togher Celtic won 1-0 against the favourites Drinagh, and were also the reigning champions. So, Ger, tell us a small bit about this game. It was obviously an upset for Togher to win, but was it deserved?
I think over the course of 90 minutes, yes, I think it was. I described it in this week's match report in the Southern Star as a tense, nervy affair rather than an exciting game. But that was to be expected because there's two teams who just knew each other so well. We had spoken in the previous podcast about Togher's danger from set pieces, and their opening goal, Donnchadh Collins scored it after 3 minutes, came from a corner. After that, to be fair, it was all Drinagh. They just threw the proverbial kitchen sink at them. But on the day, they encountered a man-of-the-match performance from Togher's young goalkeeper, Kieran Murray, who was outstanding, made some fantastic saves. But they also hit the crossbar 3 times. Tomas Connolly with 2 separate headers, and Keith Jago, who flew in with a volley about 4 or 5 yards out, 99 times out of 100, it's in the back of the net, hit off the crossbar and away to safety. And I think it was after that chance I started to think, just maybe it's Togher's day. But not to take anything away from Togher, they defended superbly. Ian Crowley, Kevin Cotter at the back, and up front, Johnny Kelly, Niall Hurley did an awful lot of extra work. They ran their socks off, and they rode their luck at times. But to end the 22-year drought, just the scenes at the final whistle, there was a lot of emotion. It means a huge amount to Togher. But just a special word too for Drinagh and the magnanimous way they handled defeat. They were obviously devastated. It was a chance to write themselves into the history books and win a 3 in a row. But they were graceful in defeat. The season isn't over, but this one's going to sting for a while.
When we were previewing this match, Joe, we spoke about the magic of the Beamish Cup, the magic of the Cup. And isn't it just fantastic that a team like Togher, like you said there, they've ended their 22-year wait, that they've gone and they've beaten the favourites, they've beaten the Premier Division champions, they beat the best team of the last decade, you could say, in the West Cork League. Togher went and they beat them, because that offers hope to every other club going into next season when it comes to the Beamish Cup, So bad news for Drinagh to lose, of course, but great news for the West Cork League and all the clubs involved.
Absolutely. 100% agree with you. And the thing is, it was just a really good day for the West Cork League. The weather wasn't great. There was a big crowd, a fantastic pitch again from Skibbereen AFC in the Baltimore Road Ground, which helped contribute to a very tense but a very good quality cup final. You're right, because what this has done for Togher, as everybody that I interviewed afterwards, and you'll read about it again in this week's Star, the reaction to it, all the young kids that were there. It's amazing the amount of young fellas that were actually playing. I say young fellas, the younger guys that were playing in this year's Togher Cup final team that were there or were heard about 22 years ago, and the effect it had on them, that everyone in the club still talks about that previous cup final win. What this cup final win does is it boosts Togher. They've no fear. We spoke about it before. They don't have any fear of Drinagh, but they respect them. But it's a long time since they beat them one-on-one in a competitive game. This alone, for to give them a boost and to give them a confidence boost heading into next year, keeps the squad together, gives the players something to aim for, come back and try and retain the title. And don't forget, they weren't that far away from the Premier Division title this year. They faded in the last couple of weeks, unfortunately, lost a couple of crucial games. They are not that far away from challenging for a league title again this year. But you're right, what this does for the Ballyhobs, for the Ilen Rovers, for the Dunmanway Towns, for the Spartak Moscows, even the teams that struggle in the top division, what it does for them is it shows that on any given day you can actually pull off a shock result, and no better competition than the Beamish Cup to do it. And one of the better cup finals I've been at in the last few years, not alone just for the emotion, the raw emotion at the end and the tears from Togher, but also just for the whole spectacle and the occasion itself. Like, it was a really, really good day for the West Cork League.
Like we said earlier, we really do want to congratulate Togher, and I think the celebrations will probably last for the week in Dunmanway and the Arch Bar. But Drinagh don't have too much time to feel sorry for themselves. They have a busy weekend and a busy couple of weeks coming up, Ger.
Yes, they do. And just on the Arch Bar, I've already seen a couple of tweets and I've stopped looking at Twitter now because, I think the celebrations, it could be like the Ballabouille races. They may go on for some time, but deservedly so. For Drinagh, you're right. They've got to dust themselves down and come back very quickly. They've got a Maybury Cup final this weekend, and they also have a Premier Division title to retain. It looks like, depending on Dunmanway and Bunratty's result this weekend coming, that it will come down to the final game against Dunmanway. What a game that will be, and what an occasion. Another cup final. But every game between now and the end of the season are cup finals for Drinagh. And I have to say again, they didn't play badly in the Beamish Cup final. They played very, very well. But some of the old failings of the past 12 months, maybe the last 2 years, when not taking chances when they arose, came back to bite them. No, it wasn't always their fault, as I alluded to. Kieran Murray denied them, I don't know how many occasions. He hit the crossbar. Another day they could have had 3 goals. But like, all of a sudden, there's a little bit of pressure on them now, because it seems ridiculous to say it. Like, they're still fighting for 2 or 3 different trophies. But were they not to win the league, were they not to win maybe even the Maybury Cup, people might look upon this league or this season as a disappointment. It's not that. It's only 12 months ago they won 5 trophies. It's only not even 12 months ago they won the most prestigious team award in West Cork, the Celtic Ross Southern Star C103 Team of the Year award. Not an easy award to win at all, considering the different teams and different sports involved. They are still the pinnacle. They are still the yardstick for West Cork League football, irrespective of the Beamish Cup decision, and to be honest, irrespective of how the season ends. And one bright bit of hope for them is a lot of their younger players played really, really well in the cup final, and they're going to need them over the next couple of weeks. But yes, the Maybury Cup final, all of a sudden, they'll want to bounce back. Losing 2 cup finals in a row would really put the pressure on them facing Dunmanway for the league the following weekend.
Like you said there, there's a lot to play for in the couple of weeks ahead, especially in the league. Ger, that's very tight. We've Ballyhobs top on 31 points at the moment. Drinagh Rangers on 29 points, and Dunmanway Town on 27 points. But Dunmanway Town have a game in hand and 2 games in hand in Ballyhobs. So like you said, a lot to play for. But before I let you go, Ger, this is also a very important week in the West Cork Schoolboys League this weekend coming up. It's the start of summer soccer. Can you tell me a small bit about that and how important this is, I suppose, for schoolboy soccer locally here in West Cork?
It's absolutely huge. For the first time ever, the West Cork Schoolboys League traditionally began their seasons in September when kids went back to school, and finished in and around April or May whenever they could, depending on the weather. A new FAI, SFAI rule change, which comes into effect in 2020, not this year, but next year, says that every schoolboys league in the country the earliest they can start their league is March, and the latest they can finish it is November. So what that means is it gives schoolboys leagues all over the country in 2020, moving away from the winter months, bad pitches, bad weather, and giving them an opportunity to play in better conditions, warmer conditions, and better playing surfaces between March and November. The West Cork Schoolboys League 2 years ago voted against making the move earlier at an AGM, but last year's AGM they decided they're going to go a year early. And the reason they're doing that is to try to get their ducks in a row, for want of a better cliche. So what it means is, for the under 12 to under 16 age grades, the league now, a brand new league, will start this coming weekend on April the 20th and run up to and possibly including November. It could be finished before that. It may be finished in and around that. But what it does is it gives the West Cork Schoolboy League, and this is absolutely crucial, on the positive side, it gives games that are postponed, say on a given Saturday, an opportunity to play them midweek. In the winter time, if a game is called off on a Saturday, say for an under-12 team, they have to wait 2 weeks before their next fixture comes up, and they never really get a chance with the dark evenings and the bad weather to get a game in between that. This changes the entire landscape. Now, obviously, it also occurs at the same time of the year when GAA and a lot of other sports are going on as well, and that's the big thing. But before everybody, makes a decision and makes up their mind that it's a good, bad, or indifferent idea, all I'd say is give it a chance first. Let's see how it goes. Saturday, there's an awful lot of games going ahead. I know we've had bad weather this week, but the reality is that most of those, if not all those games, will be played. And any ones that have already been postponed can take place midweek. And that's the crucial thing. Where the West Cork Schoolboys League has always been hamstrung is that it only had a very short period on a Saturday morning or a Saturday afternoon to get games played. This changes everything. Will it work? We don't know. Will it be a disaster? We don't know. I think we're going to get something in the middle, to be quite honest with you. And I would tell people that don't know anything about the rule change and why it's happening. This change from March to November was piloted in 3 different schoolboys leagues over 3 years ago. Donegal, Clare and Dublin. In Dublin, it went off fine, as you'd expect with the population and a lot of people just playing soccer. But in Clare and Donegal, 2 pretty important GAA areas, they lost a lot. Soccer lost a lot of players and teams the first couple of years when they moved to March, November. But since then, both Clare and Donegal are reporting record numbers of kids playing soccer. Why? Because it all evened itself out. The GAA and soccer clubs eventually started talking, and the kids that wanted to play soccer and wanted to play both found a way to do so. Will it work in West Cork? I really don't know. I have high hopes and I'm being positive about it. I think it will. And in the long run, this is a hugely important and beneficial thing for West Cork Schoolboys League soccer.
Like you said there, Ger, maybe there might be teething problems this year, but the hope is that the soccer and the GAA can coexist together. There is room for both of them, I think people really need to give this a chance, it's a great opportunity for the Schoolboys League, and hopefully bigger things will lie ahead, so the hope is that these 2 sports can coexist together, because there's lots of bright evens there in the months ahead. There's
exactly,
and it's important too, Ger, I think, for kids to have options. You don't want to kind of shoehorn a kid down one sport when they're so young. Just give them options, see what happens, and just maybe let them choose themselves. Then
hopefully it won't come to that in terms of choosing. It's a good point, because a lot of parents have asked me that. Does this mean I have to choose between one and the other? No, I don't think you do, and you're right. I think there's enough time and enough evenings for it to. No, there's lots of other sports, Kieran, and this is the thing. Yeah. You've seen in West Cork, you write about it every week, rowing, bowling, basketball. Basketball is becoming huge. And a lot of other sports like kickboxing, karate, all the kind of what would have been referred to as minority sports in the past. They're no longer minority sports because there's huge amounts of kids taking part in them. Let's see what happens. Let's give it a chance. One good thing that soccer has is it has time to breathe. It doesn't have to run off everything every weekend between now and November. And please don't think that they're trying to do that. There's even talks of taking a break at different times of the summer when other age groups are very active in the GAA and giving that a chance. It's worked in Clare. It's worked in Donegal. There's no reason it can't work in West Cork. And just one final point. The reason this is very, very important. West Cork is starting to produce real quality young soccer players. It always has produced people like Conor Ellis, people like even Darragh McElhenney, the cross-country runner, was a fantastic soccer player. We've had lots of good soccer players that have made it. Denzel Fernandez now playing for Cove Ramblers. But last Saturday afternoon in the SSE Airtricity Under-13 League of Ireland, Cork City played Cove. On the Cork team were Ger McCarthy, who came through from Togher, and Sam Bailey, who came through from Ilen Rovers. And on the Cove Ramblers team, Sean Murphy from Dunmanway, Owen Bowden from Carbery Rovers, and Luca Mohan from Ilen Rovers. 5 players playing League of Ireland football at under-13 level. That's what the Schoolboys League is trying to aspire to give kids who want the opportunity to take that career arc to allow them to do that. And hopefully, moving to March, November timeframe will increase the chances of that happening.
That's a great point, Ger. Mayor, thanks again for joining us again, and we'll be in touch with you soon.
Thank you for listening to the Star Sports Podcast. Don't forget to pick up this week's Southern Star, featuring our award-winning sports section that has everything a sports fan in West Cork could want. Available every Thursday in shops across West Cork and online from anywhere in the world. The Southern Star, number 1 for sport in West Cork.
Welcome back to the Star Sport Podcast. I'm joined in the studio by Southern Star editor and West Cork rugby aficionado, Con Downing. That's a mouthful.
That's too big a word for a Kerry man.
To preview Munster's clash with Saracens at the Ricoh Arena on Saturday. But Con, before we chat about Munster, it was a fantastic weekend for local rugby last weekend, with both Skibbereen and Bandon claiming national honours at underage level.
Absolutely. I mean, the Bandon under-16s had a great win over Gorey and won very convincingly. There was a bit more controversy, all right, in the Skibbereen game because they ended 10-all. And the game, probably under Munster rules and Leinster branch rules, should possibly have been awarded to Navan, because the rule states that the team with the greatest number of tries will win in the event of a draw. It was a 10-all draw, and then if they can't split him that way, it's the team who got the first try, and the first try was got by Navan. So there was a ruling then by the IRFU, which was invoked then by the referee, that said that they would share it. So the Navan lads were understandably very disappointed, but of course the Skibbereen lads, who had to travel much further up to Mullingar to play that game, were delighted to win, and they're sharing the cup now, and Skib won the toss then to bring the cup back to West Cork first. So I think even whatever about the circumstances, the fact that they went so far, made it to the final, acquitted themselves so well, I think it was a great year for Skibbereen, and of course another great year for Bandon as well. So we're delighted to see all the up and coming young rugby talent in West Cork, and it can only be onwards and upwards from here, I think.
I think we've talked a lot in this podcast over the last couple of weeks about how strong rugby is here in West Cork, and the success of Bandon and Skibbereen last weekend proves that again. And before we actually move on to the Munster game against Saracens this weekend, the Munster Italian Supporters Club was out in force last weekend, Con, and your own daughter Emer was at the Pro 14 game over there, and she met a couple of our local lads after.
That's right. The 3 local lads were playing the game. Darren Sweetnam wasn't playing for all the game because unfortunately he got sin-binned for a deliberate knock-on, which is a bit harsh, but anyway, that's the way the game goes. And we had Fineen Wycherley, of course, from Caelkel, and we also had Gavin Coombs from Skibbereen. Gavin actually made the break that set up the first try, Reece Marshall's try, and Fineen, as usual, acquitted himself well throughout the game, and they showed great heart and great spirit to make a comeback, because they were up against a very, very strong Benetton Treviso team, like, who would have comprised possibly up to 2/3 of the Italian national team, and to show the character to come back in the way they did and come away with a bonus point victory was fantastic altogether, and that only feeds into positivity in the camp and is going to be a very good thing for facing Saracens, even though a lot of the lads that played in that game in Treviso last Friday night won't be playing against Saracens, but still it lifts the mood in the camp, and I think for morale and spirit and things like that is very important.
What are the odds of seeing some of our West Cork fellas on for Munster against Saracens this weekend?
Very difficult to call, because sometimes you can say so-and-so is a shoo-in, but I think there's such competition for places now, and maybe Darren Sweetnam might make it in, maybe on the bench or something. It's difficult to say, and who knows who's going to get injured in training. I mean, or even somebody could even get injured in the warm-up before the game, because it's pretty intense. But it would be nice, all right, to see at least one, if not more, of the West Cork lads involved in the game against Saracens, which is going to be a huge challenge.
I see Peter Mahoney in the build-up. He said that Munster need the performance of the year to get the better Saracens, and was it 2 years ago the Saracens beat Munster at this stage as well? So
that's right. Yeah.
What sort of battle are you expecting this weekend, Con?
It's going to be a tough battle. Any battle with Saracens is a tough one, and I mean, in the game 2 years ago against them, certainly Munster didn't do themselves justice in that game. They weren't, I know the scoreline suggests differently, but they weren't too far off the pace. There was a lot of misplaced kicking, and I think that day Tyler Blindall had a very poor game, and he'll probably be there now for Jory Carbery this weekend, so it's a chance for him to make amends. I mean, I'd be hoping that history would repeat itself, because I was at the game in 2008 in Coventry when they played Saracens before, and it was a real grudge sort of a match. It was a very low scoring game. There was a downpour in the middle of it, but and Munster ground out a result, and in the other semi-final that year, Toulouse I think beat London Irish, and they went on to the final. So we wouldn't mind Munster Toulouse final, even though I would say the bookmakers would be predicting a Saracens Leinster final, but I suppose hope springs eternal.
Prediction time, so Con. Put your reputation as the number one expert of rugby here in West Cork. Put your reputation on the line for Saturday's game.
I don't think I have much of a reputation. I'd preface it by saying that, well, I suppose if you were to be realistic about it, your head would have to say Saracens, but my heart says Munster, so I hope my heart wins out this time.
And it's worth pointing out too, Con, that the weekend after, it's the final Pro 14 game against Connacht. And again, that's a game where we might see some of the Flean Wycherleys, the Gavin Coombs and Darren Sweetenham. Yeah,
I'd hope so. It's a big game, because first of all, they have got to beat Connacht to have any hope of getting a semi-final berth. Like last weekend, we would have hoped that our nice neighbours in Leinster would have done us a favour by beating Glasgow, but for some reason they didn't oblige. So Glasgow are still leading the table and are still into the automatic semi-final position. Munster have a quarter-final berth already booked, but it would be nice for automatic qualification for the semi-final. But for that to happen, Munster obviously have to go and beat Connacht, which is probably doable, because Connacht, having already qualified for the quarterfinals and not being able to do any better, will probably not feel a full-strength team, because their resources would be a bit too stretched if they got injuries as a result of doing that. And then what we need to happen is for Edinburgh to beat Glasgow in their final game. Now, I can't see that happening on current form, but you never know.
Lots to play for, so in the weeks ahead.
Indeed.
Thank you for listening to the Star Sports Podcast. Don't forget to pick up this week's Southern Star, featuring our award-winning sports section that has everything a sports fan in West Cork could want. Available every Thursday in shops across West Cork and online from anywhere in the world. The Southern Star, number one for sport in West Cork.
Welcome back to the Star Sport Podcast. It's the 10th episode of the Star Sport Podcast, and generally in every episode we've had so far, this particular portion of the show is usually the most popular. It's the peak where most people actually, we know from analytics, they tune in especially for this portion of the show. It's a portion of the show when Ger McCarthy, Star Sport editor, tells us what's coming up in this Thursday's edition of the Southern Star. Just a quick little drum roll. Kieran, what's in this week's paper?
Jack, this is an absolute cracker. No, it's another 24-page action-packed Southern Star sports section, winging its way to all our readers in West Cork this Thursday. Again, it is something for everyone. So whether you're an Ilen Rovers supporter and you want to relive that superb victory over Carbery Rangers, that's there. Whether you're a Cork Ladies football fan looking forward to this weekend's National League Division 1 semi-final against the Dubs, that's there. We have, for Togher Celtic fans, this is not to be missed. We have a 2-page special on the Beamish Cup final win against Drinagh Rangers. So when you consider that Togher didn't win this cup since 1997, you have to go out and buy
it's a bit of a collector's item.
It is a collector's item, so I'm expecting it to sell out. So as well as that, we have a lovely story actually about this young teenager from Cora, Liam Murray, who played for the FAI 2005 National Academy squad against the Netherlands last week. It's a fantastic honour for this young fella. He's a 14-year-old from West Cork, and I was just looking through, Jack, the team sheet of the Netherlands team that they played, and there was young fellas from Ajax, from PSV, from Feyenoord, and there's one fella, and I'm not even going to try and pronounce his name because it's gone from my head, and he's valued at over $1 million already. He's with Ajax, he's a striker. So for this young Cora teenager, Liam Murray, to get the chance to share the pitch with these top Dutch talents is fantastic. So like I said, there's something for everyone in there. So just go out, pick up the Star, and you will not be disappointed.
And as always, the Southern Star is available in shops around West Cork and Cork City every Thursday morning, and it's also available online for less than €2 per week at www.southernstar.ie/e-paper. So if you can't get to a shop to buy it, you can buy it online and read it on your phone, your iPad, your laptop, your desktop computer, your Dell, your Samsung, whatever piece of equipment you have. You can read the Southern Star for less than €2 a week, or buy it in the shops and enjoy that sweet Broad Street.
That's great.
Or tabloid if you read the sports section.
That's great value for money, Jack, I have to say. And as always, we ask for questions every week. If you have any questions, email them to sport@southernstar.ie. I got an odd one in my inbox this week, Jack, and it said, is it true the rumours that Jack is making his debut for the O'Donovan Rossa junior hurlers against Belgooley this weekend? Is there any truth to the rumour? Jack, I have to put it to you, this is the place to kind of tell us what's happening.
Well, I can't definitively say if I will make my debut or not, but I'm fairly certain my transfer has been approved, so it's going to be up to the management team whether I have a role to play on Saturday or not. But fingers crossed I'll get the nod, whether that be from the bench or from the start. I'll just be happy to do my bit and help out the Rossas.
Like O'Donovan Rossa's junior hurlers got to the County Junior B final last year. Great effort. So they now have Jack on board this year. And I have to warn O'Donovan Rossa, to be quite honest, because I feel it's my duty. Jack has cut his hair. And as we all know, many years ago, the tale of Samson, when Samson cut his hair, he lost his strength. So, Jack, the fact you've cut your hair now and the curls aren't what they were, is your hurling skill and is your hurling level still remain the same? That's what we all want to know.
Well, my hurling skill and hurling level was never so high that I had much to lose, whether it be from my curls or just naturally. So I won't be too worried about the effects my curls had on my hurling ability. What I will say about cutting the hurls is I have an old Cooper helmet, one of the old style ones, with cracks in it and grain and all sorts. And since I've cut my curls, the helmet actually fits a bit snugger. So that's a bonus. It's not giving me migraines when I play. So, there's ups and downs.
So that's a
peaks and troughs.
Recommendation from Jack. If you're getting your championship haircut, especially hurlers, the tighter the better the helmet fits in. So no, best of luck this weekend, Jack. Hopefully you'll make your debut and hope everything goes well for the Skib hurlers. So thanks for everyone for listening again to the Star Sport podcast. We'll be back at the same time next week. And if you enjoyed these shows, which I'm sure all of you do, then please make sure to rate, review and subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to the show. Thanks very much.
Thank you for listening to the Star Sports Podcast. Don't forget to pick up this week's Southern Star, featuring our award-winning sports section that has everything a sports fan in West Cork could want. Available every Thursday in shops across West Cork and online from anywhere in the world. The Southern Star, #1 for sport in West Cork.